You know, when you stand in your kitchen first thing in the morning and you're deciding between brewing the dark roast or the light roast coffee, there's this comforting, solid finality to it.
Right, yeah.
You push the button for the dark roast, you hear the machine word of life, you drink the coffee, and that is reality. The light roast just becomes a ghost.
A momentary what if.
Exactly. It evaporates into thin air the second you hear the grinder start. I'm your host, and joined by our resident expert today, we are heading into some weird territory.
Very weird. Because if you step into the dizzying world of quantum mechanics, well, that ghost has a pulse.
Wait, really?
Yeah. I mean, the light roast didn't evaporate. It's brewing. You are drinking it, just not here.
Oh, man. Okay. So today's mission for this deep dive is to unpack the literal and honestly the psychological implications of living in a branching universe.
Without letting our brains short circuit in the process, hopefully.
Right. We're starting with the deeply uncomfortable math of physicist Hugh Everett. He posed a question that most of his colleagues in the 1950s couldn't even stomach, which was, what if every possible outcome of our choices actually continues?
It's a massive question.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can plunge headfirst into infinite realities, we have to anchor ourselves in the hard science.
Definitely.
And for you listening, we know you follow the topic, so we aren't going to spend 20 minutes explaining what a proton is.
Right, we can skip the absolute basics.
But we do need to draw a very sharp line between the established evidence of quantum mechanics and the speculative framework of the many worlds interpretation.
Yeah, because that distinction is really the only thing keeping this conversation grounded in physics rather than, fantasy. Wonder is always strongest when it rests on absolute honesty.
I like it.
We have to start with the evidence. So when we talk about the foundation of quantum mechanics, we usually point to the double slit experiment.
The classics.
Right. When you fire a single particle, like an electron, through two slits, it acts like a wave interfering with itself.
It exists in a superposition of probabilities.
Exactly. Now, the traditional, universally taught model, the Copenhagen interpretation, states that the very act of observing or measuring that particle forces its wave function to collapse.
So the universe effectively rolls the dice, picks one location for the particle, and all the other probabilities just vanish.
Yeah. The measurement forces reality to make up its mind. That is the standard view.
Okay.
But Hugh Everett looked at the mathematics, specifically the Schrödinger equation, which perfectly maps how these quantum waves evolve over time. And he noticed something glaring.
Which was?
The equation itself does not contain any mechanism for a collapse. Physicists essentially bolted the idea of a wave function collapse onto the math just to make the equations match our everyday singular experience of reality.
So they just added it in.
Pretty much. So Everett suggested something radical. What if we stop butchering the math to protect our intuition? What if the wave function never collapses at all?
Okay, wait. I have to push back on this premise early on to ground us for a second.
Sure, go for it.
If this is just an interpretation, right, and not a proven fact, why should you or I even care? Isn't this just science fiction dressing up as science?
That's a fair question.
Because, string theory math works beautifully on a chalkboard too, but we can't prove that either, and physicists constantly argue about it. Why spend our time agonizing over something we can't observe?
You are hitting on the exact reason Everett was practically laughed out of physics during his lifetime.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But the reason modern physicists are increasingly taking his math literally is due to Occam's razor.
The simplest explanation is usually the right one.
Exactly. Everett didn't invent a new, crazy mechanism to create infinite universes. He simply removed an unproven, arbitrary mechanism, which was the wave function collapse.
Oh, I see.
If you let the Schrödinger equation play out naturally, the math dictates that when an observer measures a particle in superposition, the observer simply becomes entangled with it.
Meaning?
The universe splits into orthogonal states. You see the particle go left in one state, and another version of you sees it go right in another.
Wow.
So we care because taking the math at face value without adding human-centric assumptions inevitably leads to this branching reality. Distinguishing the hard evidence of superposition from the deduction of many worlds allows us to imagine carefully rather than just guessing.
That makes the pill slightly easier to swallow, I guess. We aren't projecting our fantasies onto the universe. We are stripping away our biases and just following the math.
Following it to a very bizarre conclusion, but yes.
But visualizing this is where, at least for me, the human brain starts to short circuit.
Oh, absolutely.
Historically, people use a gigantic tree as a metaphor.
Yeah.
The trunk is the present moment, And every choice, every quantum event branches out infinitely.
The branching tree.
But a tree implies a single trunk growing in an empty physical space. It feels too static. I feel like it's almost like a massive choose-your-own-adventure book where every page is being read simultaneously, but your eyes are only allowed to look at one specific storyline.
I love that. The choose-your-own-adventure analogy captures the isolation of the observer perfectly.
Thanks.
But it lacks the actual physical mechanism of how these realities split without crashing into one another.
Right, how do they not just jumble together?
To understand the mechanism, we have to talk about quantum decoherence.
Okay.
Instead of a tree or a book, think of reality like a pristine, perfectly calm lake.
Okay, I'm picturing the lake.
When a single quantum event happens, it's like dropping a pebble into the water. The ripples spread out smoothly. That is a quantum system in superposition.
Simple enough.
But a human being, or a coffee maker, or a laboratory environment is made of trillions of interacting particles.
So it's not just one pebble.
No, imagine dropping billions of pebbles into that lake constantly. The ripples crash into each other violently. In quantum mechanics, when a system interacts with its environment, say, a stray photon bounces off your coffee cup, the quantum information leaks into the surrounding environment.
Then that's decoherence.
Exactly. The system decoheres.
So the environment forces the entanglement.
Yes. And those crashing ripples create entirely separate, isolated wave patterns that pass right through one another without ever interacting again. They become mathematically orthogonal.
Orthogonal, meaning at right angles, completely independent.
Right. They exist in the same literal space, the same lake, but the mathematics guarantee they remain perfectly blind to one another.
So you were riding one specific wave, completely unaware of the other waves occupying the exact same lake.
Precisely. The micro-choices, the stray photons, the slight delay of a synapse firing in your brain during a meeting, each of these interactions causes decoherence.
Splitting the wave into isolated streams of conscious experience.
You got it.
Visualizing this infinite lake of orthogonal realities occupying my exact physical space right now, it brings up a visceral physical reaction.
That's a lot to handle.
It really is. When you really try to hold that image in your head, that there are countless imperceptible waves of reality crashing through your kitchen every millisecond, it induces this severe existential vertigo.
Yeah, vertigo is a good word for it.
It bridges this weird gap between quantum physics and human biology. Like, why does this theory make us so intensely uncomfortable on a physical level?
Well, what's fascinating here is that neuroscience actually explains the precise biological root of that vertigo.
Oh, really? It's a biological thing.
Completely. Our brains are not passive cameras recording the universe. They are highly aggressive reduction engines.
Reduction engines.
Yeah, human neural circuitry evolved over millions of years to track cause and effect in a straight line, operating within a very narrow sensory bottleneck.
Because that's what keeps us alive.
Right. Evolutionary biology dictates a simple imperative. I am hungry. I track the movement of the prey in 3 dimensions. I throw the spear. I eat.
Linear, safe, and computationally cheap.
Highly computationally cheap. The brain uses predictive processing to filter out billions of bits of sensory data every second just to present you with a clean 3D linear user interface.
So a single narrative.
Exactly. The concept of branching realities, of existing in multiple diverging states simultaneously, violently violates everything our neural circuitry evolved to expect.
So we literally don't have the hardware for it.
We do not have the biological hardware to intuitively process quantum decoherence.
So our 3-dimensional linear experience is just a neurological survival filter. It isn't the absolute truth of the universe.
No, it's just a useful tool.
Wow. So when we try to force our brains to comprehend the raw, unfiltered data of reality, the infinite branches, our brains essentially throw an error code.
Yeah, we experience cognitive dissonance. But the crucial insight from our sources is that this discomfort isn't a sign that the idea is inherently wrong.
Right, because relativity sounded completely absurd when Einstein proposed that time slows down the faster you move.
Exactly. That violated all human intuition, too. The discomfort you feel is simply a sign that the idea is genuinely new to your neural pathways.
We're basically asking a piece of Pleistocene hardware to run quantum-level software.
That's a perfect way to put it.
We just have to let the software update run, even if it feels, a little glitchy at first.
Just breathe through the vertigo.
But pushing through that biological discomfort lands us right in the middle of a massive philosophical minefield.
It does.
This is the part of the many worlds interpretation that keeps people awake at night. If every possible reality exists out there on some branch, if every outcome inevitably happens somewhere because the math demands it, do the choices we make here in this specific reality actually matter?
Ah, the threat of quantum nihilism.
Yes, because if a version of me makes the healthy choice and another version makes the self-destructive choice, and both realities are equally real, why exert the effort to be good?
It can feel like ultimate determinism, like you are just a passenger on a wave you can't control.
Exactly.
Well, our source material provides a profound counter to that existential dread, and it integrates a modernized version of the blank slate theory.
The blank slate.
Yeah. Historically, the blank slate implied we are shaped entirely by our environment from birth. But in the context of a branching multiverse, the concept takes on an active rather than passive meaning.
Active how?
Think of it this way. The universe provides the blank slate. It's an infinite block of quantum marble containing every possible statue, every possible timeline.
But the marble doesn't carve itself.
Exactly. The environment gives us the raw material of infinite possibilities, but our conscious decisions are the chisel.
Oh, I like that.
The terror of many worlds isn't that nothing matters, it's that everything matters. Every time you make a decision, you are carving out the one specific reality you will consciously experience.
And our source material framed this with a defining metaphor, right?
Yes, the metaphor for our entire deep dive. Every branch may exist somewhere, but you are the one holding the axe.
Every branch may exist somewhere, but you are the one holding the axe. That reframes the entire concept from passive observation to intense, hyper-focused accountability.
It really anchors you right back into the present moment.
Because you can't live in the other branches. You can't feel their pain or celebrate their victories. You only have access to the specific wave you are currently riding.
The reality you are actively carving out of the marble. Even if there are a trillion universes existing parallel to ours oscillating in the same physical space, you are living exactly one life.
You possess one conscious experience.
Right. The mathematical existence of a million other houses doesn't mean you shouldn't bother sweeping the floors and fixing the roof of the one you actually live in.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Does this mean that realizing how vast the universe is doesn't remove our personal responsibility, but actually deepens it?
I'd say absolutely, because the stakes of your immediate reality are the only things you can physically interface with. It forces a profound level of mindfulness.
So curiosity about the cosmos and personal responsibility in your own life become inseparable.
They have to be. The fact that you are the one holding the axe in your specific timeline is the sole mechanism that gives your choices meaning.
You are the architect of the reality you are consciously experiencing, measuring, and collapsing into focus.
Exactly.
That reframing keeps the wonder intact, but totally kills the apathy.
Right.
It cures the quantum nihilism.
It does.
But since we are holding the axe in this timeline, and you mentioned earlier that these orthogonal waves exist in the same space, in the same lake,
Yeah.
is it ever mathematically or physically possible to interact with those other branches? Can we build an instrument sensitive enough to, I don't know, peek over the cosmic fence and see the other waves?
That takes us directly from philosophical responsibility back to the hard limits of modern physics. And the unvarnished truth is, at present, there is absolutely no experimental evidence nor any theoretical mechanism that allows separate branches to communicate once decoherence has occurred.
So the information is sealed off permanently.
Permanently. The math dictates that once the waves become completely orthogonal, they cannot interfere with one another.
Wow. No crossing over.
To cross back over, you would essentially have to reverse the entropy of the entire universe, gathering back every leaked photon and stray particle that caused the decoherence in the first place.
So multidimensional travel or communication is fundamentally prohibited by thermodynamics.
Which brings us to the guiding epistemology of our source material, a concept they call cautious imagination.
Cautious imagination. That implies a balancing act between arrogance and ignorance.
It's a vital framework when exploring the bleeding edge of physics. It demands that we imagine boldly, allowing our minds to follow the math into the farthest, most unsettling reaches of reality.
But we have to stay grounded.
Right. We must simultaneously reason carefully. We must rigorously distinguish our hard evidence, like the interference pattern of an electron, from our sweeping speculations about infinite reality.
And never stop asking questions.
Because the moment we claim absolute certainty, science dies.
You know, if we connect this to the everyday experience of learning, it completely shatters the illusion that education has a finish line. The sources use this incredible mountain analogy to describe this shift.
I love that analogy.
We usually think of learning as climbing a massive mountain. You endure this grueling climb, you finally reach the summit, you plant your flag, and you say, I see everything now. I understand reality.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the reality of knowledge is vastly more humbling.
How so?
Well, you climb the mountain of quantum mechanics, you push through the cognitive dissonance, you finally stand on the peak, only to look out through the clearing clouds and discover countless higher peaks stretching out endlessly beyond it, disappearing into the horizon.
The horizon of knowledge is always receding. You answer the question of the wave function, and it simply births 10 new, infinitely more complex questions about the nature of the multiverse.
The ultimate realization of wisdom isn't that we finally have all the answers. It's understanding that the universe isn't becoming stranger. We are simply acquiring the vocabulary to articulate how little we truly know.
As our tools improve, our certainty shrinks.
And our curiosity must scale up to match the new vastness.
Okay, so if we accept this infinite branching, and we acknowledge that our 3D brains can barely process the local consequences of quantum mechanics, we hit a massive conceptual wall.
Which is?
Where do all these universes physically fit? I mean, if there are waves in a lake, what is the lake made of?
That is the million-dollar question.
That naturally forces us to look past quantum mechanics and ask about the actual canvas of the cosmos. Because if quantum mechanics isn't the final mountain peak, what is?
The frontier of modern physics is moving beyond the behavior of subatomic particles and deeply into the structural geometry of the universe itself.
Structural geometry.
Yeah, to answer where the branches fit, we have to look at the mathematical spaces they occupy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Geometry. I assume we are not talking about high school trigonometry here.
No, we're talking about the multidimensional fabric of reality. The many worlds interpretation operates within something called Hilbert space.
Hilbert space.
It's an abstract mathematical space with an infinite number of dimensions. But even in our physical theories, like string theory or M theory, physicists are exploring dimensions of reality entirely outside our sensory bottleneck.
The evolutionary user interface we talked about earlier.
Exactly that. We were trapped moving in 3 spatial dimensions, up and down, left and right, forward and backward, plus the arrow of time.
Right.
But the mathematics required to unify quantum mechanics with gravity suggests the universe contains many more spatial dimensions.
Like hidden dimensions.
Yes. Dimensions that might be folded up so infinitesimally small, like Calabi-Yau manifolds, that we can't perceive them. Or scales of reality so incomprehensibly vast that our entire observable universe is just a membrane floating in a higher dimensional bulk.
Wow, so the many worlds interpretation, with its infinite branching timelines, is just one microscopic layer of this cosmic onion.
Just one layer.
The branches don't need to fit inside our 3D space because our 3D space is just a tiny, limited cross-section of a much larger multidimensional geometry.
When you combine the branching mathematics of Everett with the higher dimensional geometry of modern physics, you come to a profound realization. Reality is fundamentally larger, infinitely more complex, and perhaps far more beautiful than human biology ever dared to imagine.
It completely shatters the lens through which we view our own existence.
Yeah.
For you listening, just look around the room you are sitting in right now. Look at your hands.
It's wild to think about.
To bring this all together for you, the physical reality you are experiencing in this exact second is not the entirety of the universe. It is a highly filtered biological illusion designed to keep you sane.
A very necessary illusion.
Very necessary. Our journey today started with the undeniable, measurable evidence of the double-slit experiment. We pushed past the Copenhagen interpretation to explore Hugh Everett's uncollapsed wave function.
We waded through the deeply unsettling evolutionary neuroscience of why our brains violently reject the concept of orthogonal branching realities.
And finally, we dismantled quantum nihilism, arriving at the empowering realization that, despite the infinite vastness of Hilbert space, consciousness is the chisel.
We traversed from the micro-level weirdness of an electron to the macro-level geometry of higher dimensions. But the core philosophy remains fiercely local.
Fiercely local. I love that. Because no matter how many dimensions exist mathematically, no matter how many branches of reality might be splitting off your physical form this very second due to environmental decoherence, your everyday conscious experience remains unbroken. Your daily choices still anchor your reality. You are the one holding the axe. You are the one deciding how to swing it.
And that profound locality brings us to one final question. Something for you to mull over in the quiet moments after this deep dive ends.
Oh, I'm ready.
Consider the sheer scale of the many worlds interpretation. If the math is true, and absolutely every physically possible outcome plays out somewhere on the wave, then there is a branch out there, mathematically guaranteed, where a version of you has already overcome your current obstacles.
Wow.
A version of you is already living the exact idealized reality you are striving and suffering for right now. The ideal you exists. So does knowing your highest, most realized self exists somewhere out there change the way you value the struggle of getting there in this world?
Does knowing the destination is already reached on another branch make your climb on this specific branch feel futile? Or does it make the act of carving out your own localized masterpiece infinitely more beautiful? The next time you're standing in your kitchen, deciding between the dark roast and the light roast, look at your hand, pushing the button, and remember, the universe provides the infinite possibilities, but the choice is entirely yours. Make it a good one. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.